Welcome back to Project Parthenon. Today we are diving deep into one of the most famous yet challenging projects in the history, the Sydney Opera House. It was an engineering and architecture marvel, but did you know that it was originally planned to be completed within 4 years, but it ended with 14 years, and it was planned and budgeted to be completed with 7 million US dollar, but did you know that it was completed with staggering high 102 million US dollar? So, what went wrong and what lessons that we can learn to improve our project management skill? Stick around us because we are going to break down each and everything from scope creep to stakeholder conflicts to poor risk management so that you do not make the same mistake in your project. So, are you ready? Let's begin. Let's rewind to 1957. The New South Wales government launched an international design competition for world-class performing arts center. It was says that it received more than 200, to be very precise, 233 applications or entries across the globe from 32 countries, out of which a Danish architect John Utzon design was finalized and he won the competition. It was says that that particular design was revolutionary and it was inspired by shell of a ship. The vision, it was so futuristic, ambitious, and to put the Sydney on the global culture map. Now we further move and deep dive into the project management aspects, and before that I just wanted to set the context to understand fundamental or iron triangle of this particular project. Iron triangle means scope, time and cost. So what the scope of this project? The purpose of the project is to build a world-class opera house with sound and acoustic system. Cost, it was planned to be completed with 7 million US dollar, and timeline, it was planned to complete within 4 years from 1957 to 1961, and the John Utzon was the architect behind this particular project. Now with that project background, let's further deep dive and understand the complexity of the project and understand what went wrong. From the very beginning, project was rushed into the execution even before finalize the structure plan and drawing. Because of the political pressure, government want to start the project early. Even though the engineers didn't have any clue and idea how to build the unique shell-shaped structure of roof. So let's divide the project step by step and uncover what are the problem, challenges or issue it faced. We also realize that it's still relevant because if you reflect, you also recognize that many projects or similar kind of problems or patterns you face in your project. If any project comes into your mind, just mention or reflects your thoughts into the comment section. Now let's understand the first issue, that is the scope creep. Scope creep is one of the disaster and the major critical issue of any project. So for those who are unfamiliar with the terminology scope creep, it is the situation when the project requirement keep on changing without proper change control process, and this is the term what most frequently used in this project management. So when this kind of potential scope creep happen, a project get derailed, and that is what happened with the Sydney Opera House project. So what are the scope creeps? So first is the design change, structure design change. So when project was earlier conceptualized, at that time the design of the roof of the Sydney Opera House, it was a single roof shell shed. But later on, engineers realized that it was practically not possible to have that kind of design at the given technology at that point of the time. So later on, it was a ribbed shelf rooftop was introduced, and that further increased the cost and delayed the timeline. Second thing is functionality changes. So when it was planned earlier, there are two performance hall that was planned, but later on customer demand more stages, more restaurant, more functionality. As always, customer demands more. But if each and every time when the demands of the customer get incorporated, it further change the design, and all consequences it have a butterfly kind of effect, which all related things are get delayed and cost overshoot. The third and the major thing, that is poor documentation and approval process. So many changes were made without proper documentation control and without proper approval process in place. So later on it creates confusion, teams get distracted, and I think that kind of things are happens today's even. When customers is demanding and it's urgent kind of situation, we do accommodate customer request without having a proper documentation or following the proper change control process. So we are, or I am personally not against of any changes. Sometimes it's good, but it should be followed with a proper documentation and change control process. So these are the major three scope creep what happened and derail the project. So what we learned from this particular incident, first you have to define your scope clearly with the customer. Though whatever the project management framework or methodology you follow, but it should be very well documented and conveyed to the customer. And if there is a change, then you should follow a proper change control mechanism or process. Without a proper project governance, project may turn around or get out of control or spin out of the control at any given point of the time. For that, you may follow tools or use the tools like Kanban board or work breakdown structure. If you want, I will share the templates in the description section. Second major challenge or problem or issue of this project is stakeholder management failure. As you know that stakeholder management is one of the most critical and the complex tasks of any project, because if you are not able to identify stakeholder and manage their expectation well, it make or break your project. In this particular project, the different and conflicting stakeholder interests would be the major roadblock. So let's understand what are the stakeholders, who are the stakeholders involved in this particular project. And before that, let's understand how we identify the stakeholder. So stakeholder is one or a group of people whose interests are impacted directly or indirectly because of your project output or outcome. So there are many tools by which you can identify stakeholder and understand their requirement, prepare a stakeholder engagement assessment matrix, and many more things. I will share that things in your description section for your reference. But now let's focus again. Let's understand who are the stakeholders whose interests are impacted with this particular project. The first, the major stakeholder is the government, who was pressurizing to get the things done with an urgency because of the political pressure. The second stakeholder, the architect, the zone or zone, who not wanted to compromise on the aesthetic and the innovation point of the design, regardless of the cost overrun. The third project stakeholder is the engineers and the contractor, who keep on executing the design which constantly changing. And the fourth and the major stakeholder, the public and the media, who keep on criticizing the project because of the delay and the cost overrun. Now let's understand what went wrong. First, the government during the execution of the projects changed frequently, and because of that there is no a single leadership, or there is inconsistency in the leadership throughout the project execution. Second, zone or zone, who clashes and conflicting with the authorities because of the design and delay and the cost overrun. In 1966, Zone Utzon was forced to resign from this particular project. And it was says that in when project was completed finally in the inauguration ceremony, when project was inaugurated by Queen Elizabeth II with the grand ceremony, this particular gentleman John Urzon was absent, but a decade later his talent was recognized and he was awarded with one of the most prestigious award in the architect field, that is Pulitzer Award in 2003, for his work of the Sydney Opera House, which was social and architecture marvel that we have considered now. So this is how the stakeholder make or break kind of things. So what lessons we learn from this particular stakeholder failure? First, you have to understand the stakeholder, understand the requirement, and you should use the tools like RASI metrics, that is stand for responsibility, accountability, support, consult, and inform, so that you can divide the scope and avoid any conflicts. I will share the RASI metrics template in the description section. And stakeholder engagement assessment metrics also we have to follow. I will share that template as well. And second, learning from this incident, that you should have a proper project governance mechanism in place, and frequent meeting of the project status review should happen, and there is a mechanism or there is a way by which open channel of communication where project stakeholder openly discuss with each other and try to prevent a potential conflicts to be happen, so that we can focus. All stakeholders should work and align to achieve the common single objective or a goal of the project. Now let's move to the third major issue, problem or challenge of this Sydney Opera House, that is poor risk management and budget overrun. From the beginning, the project was poorly managed in terms of the risk, and when we analyze the project budget, so if you analyze the project timeline, that project in 2000 in 1957 it was budgeted to be completed with 7 million US dollar. In 1961 it was revised to complete with 20 million US dollar. In 1965 it was again, this cost was skyrocketed to 15 million US dollar, and when project finally completed in 1973 it was 102 million US dollar. It's 1400% increase from originally budgeted. So what went wrong? Why the project cost skyrocketed? It was because first, unforeseen technical challenges. The engineers experiment with the new techniques. They are not aware that the design was feasible with the available techniques and technology at that time. So they keep on experimenting with that. And because of that, the cost overshooted and project get delayed. Second thing is there was no contingency planning. There is no budget or project buffer allocated for unforeseen, known, unknown. And the third and the most important, there is no financial oversight. So there is poor project cost tracking. So project cost keep on changing, and because of that there is a chaos in the project stakeholder. So what lessons we learn out of this? That there should be a proper project risk and financial control framework should be adopted. We should use the tools and techniques like Monte Carlo simulation or earned value management, so that it helps us to give an early warning indicator. We can get an alert before cost overshooted. We can predict that and we try to control before it's get out of your control. Now let's conclude that despite of all challenges and roadblocks, this project finally completed in 1973. In today's time, it was the most iconic building across the world, and it attracts more than 10 million visitors annually every year. So what lessons we learned from this case study? The key learnings that we should define the project scope and follow the proper change control process. we should have a proper stakeholder engagement metrics in place and have a proper communication channel. And the third thing that we need to learn, that we should have a proper risk management strategy in place. And the fourth and the last, that we should have a proper budget tracking control tools in place, and we have to tap the project budget. Now, before I finally conclude today's session, I would love to ask you the question that what do you think, could this project have handled better way? Drop your thoughts in the comment section. If you found this case study insightful, please subscribe our channel and hit the bell icon for more project management case study related content. Thank you very much. See you in the next video.